What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over the recent nerfs Fortnite made to several items in Chapter 6, Season 4. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, comment down below what you think of these changes, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything, it is EvolveJake, just like my channel name is. In this update, they nerfed the Medallions, they nerfed the Wrecker Revolver, they nerfed the Swarm Strike rocket launcher, and shockwave spawn rate, as well as some other things. So there was a lot of changes in this update. I'll be starting off with the Medallions because I think that is going to be the thing that at least I was most interested in when I saw that there is changes. The jump medallion that you can get from Demon Debris, the jump was nerfed by 27%. So like the height of it, I guess, and the speed of it was reduced. And then the stamina cost of double jumping was also increased by 50%. So the double jump is not as significant as it was before, and it's going to cost more, meaning if you're just spamming it out in fights, you're not going to be able to do it as much, and it is more likely you kind of run out of stamina. And then the slide medallion was also nerfed. So the slide boosted speed was reduced by 50%, and then the base movement speed you got just for having this medallion in your inventory was reduced by 8%. So you go a little bit slower when you have this than you did before, and then the slide isn't as fast. And I know a lot of people in the Fortnite community, whenever anything gets nerfed, they say like, oh, it's ruined, there's no point in picking it up anymore. I think both of these medallions can still be good, but they are noticeably worse than they were before. You're going to pick it up and you're probably going to immediately notice the change if you are someone who is using them, consistently before. Personally, I think this is a good change. I think these two medallions at the start of the season were incredibly powerful. And not only did it make it, more early game reliant on kind of landing at those POIs and getting them, but also I just didn't find playing against either of these medallions to be very enjoyable. And that's kind of the biggest problem with medallions, in my opinion, is it's something that one player in the lobby gets to enjoy, and then everybody else just has a worse experience playing against them. As I said, though, I think they're still good. Being able to use the double jump in a fight and break somebody's camera if you do it properly is something that can still win you fights. And then also kind of the way you can navigate the map and the way you can navigate fights with the double jump is still very useful and can be, fight deciding in certain circumstances. But it's just not as busted as it was before. And if you are playing against it, I don't feel like I'm at as much of a disadvantage. And I feel the same way about the slide medallion. It was someone using the slide medallion previously was very slippery and difficult to keep up with, especially when somebody had both. Now it's still like they go faster and they have advantages that a regular player wouldn't, but it's not as ridiculous. So personally, I think this medallion change is a good thing. They're still useful, but they're not as busted. The next item that was also nerfed is going to be the Wrecker Revolver. This is going to be a similar story. This is going to be a change you're going to notice. The Wrecker Revolver is worse now, but it's still a very good item. So you can no longer double pump with two revolvers. For most of the start of the season, a lot of people were just running two Wrecker Revolvers and then alternating back and forth. Now, if you swap from the Wrecker Revolver to another pistol, you will get a delay preventing you from being able to shoot. And this makes it to where it's less efficient to use two of them than it is to just use one. But you can still use the Wrecker Revolver in combination with a shotgun. So you can run Wrecker Revolver and Sentinel Pump, or Wrecker Revolver and one of the Double Trouble shotguns, the exotics. You just can't run two revolvers and swap back and forth. So this opens up the door to like some different combos being relevant. The damage on the Wrecker Revolver was reduced by 4 for the legendary, epic, and rare versions across the board. They each got 4 less damage. The max damage for the Wrecker Revolver was decreased by 10 for every rarity, meaning the common now has a max damage of 130, and the legendary now has a max damage of 150. And then the range on this revolver was also reduced, and this is going to make it not as crazy for those medium range fights, and not as crazy if you're just shooting people out of the sky, like shockwaving away from you. You can still go for those fights with it, and you still can hit for it. It's just like, instead of hitting for like, I don't know, like 40, 50, you're hitting for like 15. So it's not as crazy in those situations, but there's still times where you'll be able to shoot people out of the sky that are shockwaving if they're weak enough, or if you hit a good enough shot. And that added pressure that you can kind of apply when chasing somebody is really nice. So if the medallions weren't touched, I would say that having the revolver and the sentinel pump was kind of a weird playstyle, because both of the medallions, I feel like prior to them being nerfed, they created so much separation in a fight that having double revolver was just really good because of that added range. With the medallions being nerfed, I don't really mind running revolver and sentinel pump. My main kind of reasoning for wanting to run 2 revolvers was I felt like when I had the double jump medallion, I would often just be double jumping into a range where my pump is useless. And then the slide medallion was kind of the same thing. You would slide so far that you're out of pump range. With the medallions being nerfed, Wrecker Revolver and Sentinel Pump feels good. The 2 exotic double trouble shotguns feel very good, whereas previously I didn't feel as motivated to use these because, like I said, I was just griefing myself range-wise by using the medallions. And then also the exotic Wrecker Revolver is still incredible, and with this, you don't really need to combo it with anything because the fire rate is so good. So I think the exotic Wrecker Revolver is going to be very sought after, and the exotic double trouble shotguns are also going to be very sought after. If I don't have access to any exotics, I would like to be using a Wrecker Revolver and a Sentinel Pump. I think they combo very well together. As I said, with the medallions not creating as much separation, this combo feels very good. The next item that got nerfed was the Swarm Strike rocket launcher. This change was not very noticeable to me playing today. This still felt incredibly good. So the damage per rocket was reduced by 5 for each rarity for damage to players and structures, but the damage to bugs was not changed. And then the radius from the rockets was also reduced by 14%. So it's a little bit weaker and it doesn't cover as much area, but it's still a monster. And then the swarm damage multiplier was increased from 3 to 3.56. I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is like the damage to bugs or the damage to vehicles or something, but I think they increased this multiplier to counteract the damage to players and damage to structures reduction. That's why I think maybe it would be bugs. But either way, I think this rocket launcher is still incredibly good. It still destroys cars very well. If you hit a player with it, they're still going to take a lot of damage, and you might not quite like one hit them with a perfect shot as you would previously, but you'll put them into a state where they might as well have been one hit. Like, I don't know exactly what the damage is, but maybe instead of doing 250, you do 240, and that person is left with 10. A rocket plus a shot from the Wrecker Revolver or shotgun is still going to be enough for you to get a kill in most situations if your rockets hit well. So I still think this launcher is incredibly good and something that needs to be feared. It's still very overpowered in my opinion. A lot of people are going to be using it. With the changes to the Wrecker Revolver not being able to run double as them, I feel like more inclined to run an AR, so there's not as much room in my inventory for this launcher, but I was using it today when I was able to get the exotic Wrecker Revolver. And as I said, it's still incredible, and if I know an enemy I'm playing against is using it, I am more concerned about baiting out a rocket to start the fight than anything else. Another change in this update that's unfortunate is going to be that the shockwave spawn rate was reduced across the board, so there's less shockwaves on the map, and there's less shockwaves from the A tier drops, which I was sad about. Previously, when you got an A tier drop, I think it gave you like 8 shockwaves. Felt like every time I got my A tier drop, I got a full stack, which was great. Now you get 2 from this, and that is unfortunate. I think if they reduced the spawn rate of shockwaves but left it to where the A tier gives you a full stack, I think that would have been a nice middle ground. The shockwave launcher is definitely the preferred mobility now with less shockwaves on the map. I feel like it already was, but there's like kind of maybe, you know, some debate. With less shockwaves on the map now, the launcher, if you're able to find one, is going to be great. I was often getting one when I went to the exotic bunkers. It's not like guaranteed to be there, but there's like so much loot there and the OXR crates that I felt like I was often getting the shockwave rocket launcher or shockwave launcher. But the OXR crates are definitely something that you're going to want to go for to get that shockwave launcher. And if I hear an enemy has one that I don't yet, I'm definitely targeting them. It didn't feel... The drop rate change was definitely noticeable, but I felt like I didn't really have any games today where I just found no mobility all game. Like, there was times off spawn where it was rough, but typically after I looted my initial POI, I got some form of mobility, or I was able to get to A tier if I got the boss to be able to go to the bunker and then hopefully get a shockwave launcher that way. The OXR ranks were changed in today's update, but I think a lot of people are kind of confused by this. So the points required to rank up was increased by 10% for duos, trios, and squads. Solos, the amount of points you need to rank up remained the same. And so a lot of people look at this and are like, they made it so much harder to rank up and it was already difficult to reach S tier. But they also increased the amount of points that you get for eliminations. So apparently, based on what Fortnite said, it should be easier to rank up in solos, but remain the same in all other modes. It still is. I got S plus more today than I have prior this season, but it usually was still so late into the game that it didn't really matter. Like there was only like 1 or 2 people left, or like a bot left. So I still think it takes so long to get S plus that it doesn't really even matter. But if you're playing duos, trios, and squads, it should remain about the same to level up. And in solos, it got a little bit easier with this update. The minigun accuracy was improved, or the amount of recoil it has was decreased in this update. I still didn't really care for this weapon. And I didn't really enjoy using it. It seems like it's only really effective up close, and I don't really want to be using this up close, especially with like the revolver shotgun playstyle and the way you can play off mobility with that. I don't want to just be sitting there holding the shoot button down with a minigun. I was kind of interested to see it versus cars, but the range on it was so meh that I didn't really feel like it was that great versus cars either. And then the final change we're going to talk about is going to be that the queen bosses also got reduced HP, making them a little bit easier to eliminate. In every game mode, the HP was decreased by a different amount because it has more health the larger the team size. But, you know, either way, this change is just, it should be slightly easier to eliminate the queens, or, you know, go slightly faster. It's not like it was hard before. But it should just take a little bit less time. So if you were someone who was landing at any of the medallion POIs, this benefits you. If you're landing kind of somewhere else and trying to third party, you might need to be a little bit faster. But yeah, that is going to be it. With this update, personally, I think it was very good. I think how powerful the medallions were at the start of the season was not ideal. And then the Wrecker revolver was also something that was really out of line. So the most I've enjoyed playing the game today, I think, was definitely with these nerfs. Or the most I've enjoyed playing this season was today with these nerfs in place. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more. Let me know what you think of the changes down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.